folks. How's it going? Welcome to the next edition of Serverless CrAIc. All going well. How are you getting on?
Not too bad.
All
Um,
good.
another full on week in the world of IT and fucking AI and engineering and just everything's moving fast.
Living the life.
AI going a million miles an hour.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, fire hose. So we've been having a conversation about the different impacts and talking about the second phase of the flywheel kind of challenge and really about the whole idea of socio-technical systems, which I think is a massive topic to discuss around the developing with AI and how teams work with AI. And I know we've talked a lot about team topologies in the book. You're big fans of team topologies. It's a brilliant piece of work. But suppose the question that I think is worth exploring is, does team topologies still stand up with AI agents? You'll hear people saying that, a single developer can do the work of an entire company. But I don't think that's true. But I thought it might be no harm to just go through the team types and some of the key concepts and see how they're impacted. And like, no surprise, like we're big fans of team topology, so we still think it's important. But let's go do the exercise anyway for the crack.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Um, so one of the things that I love about team topologies is they talked about cognitive load from very, very early on. And I think it was the first, it was the first book or group I seen that actually talk about cognitive load as a thing. Like we all experience this through our career.
Yeah.
But we would have just said my head's melted or this is crazy. We didn't really call it a thing
Yeah.
and assess. Sometimes it was high, sometimes it was low. So I actually think this changes a lot in with AI agents,
It
and
does.
it's more important than ever.
Yeah, and I think it's like as we mentioned, drinking from a fire hose of information. Like in the past, these things would be codified in books, they'd be in, you know, conference talks that you could watch, but they were relatively stable, right? You could read the book, you could absorb the information, you could go to the conferences, you could do this, talk to your peers, and things wouldn't change, week to week. But now with this new sort of emergent era of new capabilities coming at you all the time, there's a massive cognitive load about understanding, embracing it, trying to apply it to your ecosystem. So I think your cognitive load's gone significantly higher over the last 6 months, a year and a half, right? And I think we all need to be mindful of that, because there's always new things coming out, and it's like you haven't even rolled out the last thing before the new thing comes
Mm.
out, right? So I think cognitive load is definitely something that we need to make sure we design our ecosystems to help minimize.
There's almost like the pace of change in the industry, but then also the pace of change on your project.
Yep.
You're sitting with your teammates, you're working through stuff, like you're going through stuff really quickly, and there's a lot of information being
Yep.
fed in and being generated.
Yeah.
Mm. It's kind of like so the Mark was kind of saying is like different dimensions to this one, right? I don't know about what you guys have been experiencing. I think I've been experiencing one where what are the things that what is the important cognition, right? What are the things there that I think you've been able when this works well, I think you spend more time worrying about the important things,
Yep.
i.e.,
Mm.
like, is this in the right domain? Who is the domain expert? How do I get the domain expert to validate what I'm doing? How can I spend more time with the domain expert and probably less on, like, you know, what is the best way to implement this on TypeScript or, again, not saying that that's different. It's just different. I think there's definitely a swing towards more outcome value driven sort of
Yeah, yeah.
value-based cognition as opposed to I'm really want to spend a lot of time working like
Yep.
revamping my TypeScript. So I feel like it's still there, but it's maybe they're just different kind of balances or different,
Yeah,
different
that's a
things.
great point because a lot of the cognitive load in the past may have been around sort of the technical details of your solution and
Mm.
implementing your solution or the language you chose or the patterns you applied or the quality sort of capabilities you might apply to that. Whereas now you're maybe out of your comfort zone. You're thinking about getting higher up the value chain. You're thinking about
Yeah.
who are the users and what's the product needs and who are my key stakeholders and how do I position myself there. So for a lot of engineers, that's very uncomfortable. So that raises the
Mm.
cognitive load because in the past you were focusing on your the technology, the implementation, the solutions, the tech. Now you're
Yeah.
having to address
And
a
I
lot
think
more other things that maybe are
just
harder for you.
just on that, like I think where the certainly where I'm burning out brain cycles is just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should do it. So how do you separate those things? Like because in the past there may have been things that maybe constrained your ability to leverage like a proper good engineering practice.
Yeah.
But now, okay, now I can do that practice.
Yeah.
So now I have to, okay, should I do that practice? And so I find I spend a lot of cycles in that, like
Mm.
which is kind of good,
Yeah.
but it also you have to watch you to burn yourself out at the same time, you know.
Mm. I think that leads on as well to um, the socio-technical side of it. And one of the things I think is interesting is that the two sort of it's different from team topologies. I don't think it's not team types, it's design principles. And the two design principles they call it DP1 and DP2. Is DP1 is where everything is kind of, very sort of optimized in quotes, where the skill is taken out of it. And it's very much of a top-down control, like a factory idea, where people it's all about control, coordination, and focus, about labor. And DP2 is more about empowerment, hire smart people and let them go. So I think this is fascinating, and I don't think it's really fleshed out yet. Is a lot of in my theory is a lot of IT is DP1, where it's very controlled places, and people just want their ticket. Give me my ticket, and I'll just code it. I don't really care about the big picture. But DP1, the whole empower teams, is when it's like exactly what we're talking about, is where you're high up the value chain and you're grabbing only a business problem, thinking how can I solve it? And I
Mm.
think the DP1 stuff is not going to, it's different, and that's principles that are going back decades and decades, way into the last century. So I can see them making a re-emergence again.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
back to the like we talk about this a lot, but do you have clarity of purpose? Do you have
Mm,
autonomy, mastery, and purpose to actually pursue that purpose, right? Do you have everything you need to do it? And if you're just there knocking out tickets and stories and not understanding what the impact of that is, then you're going to struggle in this new world. You really have to
mm,
tie your work to things that actually make a difference and actually have an
yeah,
impact and deliver value. I think that's increasingly being we're seeing that ourselves across the board, right? It's like you need to make
Yeah.
sure that you're doing things that actually make a difference now.
I think it's as the engineer, like again, thinking through this as an engineer, and I kind of feel like, to a certain extent in this way of working, you still have to understand in in a in the way we used to do things like a month ago to now, or but um, what would be the most idealistic kind of way? Because even you think about like how you want your agents to orchestrate and stuff like that, right? So there's definitely a time and a place for letting them go off and be creative, and but typically you do have to bring them back in. You do have to go from that probabilistic to deterministic. You know what I mean? So at some point in time, it's got to come back in and go, yep, this is this is what we'd ship up in the prod. This is what we'd scale out across these many different servers. This is what we're prepared to put in front of like 50,000 different users. So you gotta have these things in place 100%. Like,
mm.
and you
So
still
I
as
have a
an
question
engineer,
for
you
you.
gotta take an interest in that how that works. You know.
You talked about the agents, as in like you got to let them go off and do this and come back. I know at the start of this, all this madness, Ethan Mollick and people would say you talk about the LLM as a person, as a persona. But the
Mm.
question for you is like, especially with the socio-technical stuff, do you think of AI as a team member?
I'll let Dave hit, or I'll let Mark maybe hit that one first. I've got my own opinion, but I just want to see how controversial it is.
Yeah, I think they can be a team member to a degree, but I think increasingly you're seeing if you have swarms of agents, if you have like agents being orchestrated across the board, the same organizational principles and practices need to apply to them, right? So you're going to have the same, if you don't have clear communication, if you don't have clear separation of duties and concerns, if you don't have clear boundaries around what agent A does versus agent B, then you're going to run into the same bottlenecks that team topologies and other sort of
Mm,
socio-technical sort of good practices have been brought forth to address. So that's why like team topologies and all these other things, domain-driven design and event-driven architecture, and all these sort of things that we apply, they would apply to your agents as well and your agent orchestration frameworks because they will come across the same bottlenecks that we have come across over the last 10, 20, 30 years of engineering, right? So I think they can be a team member. I don't think they can be, they can't be signing off on releases to production. They can't be, approving emerging PRs just yet. But they definitely can be a contributing member, like a junior member of your team that you can collaborate with, that you can pair with to a degree. Um, Ideally not solo. You're doing it with your human pair, but it's interesting because that's what's emerging, right? They are increasingly
Yeah.
being seen as junior team members.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see the value in it, right? I guess where I'm starting to question things is I don't like, I'm starting to move away from anthropomorphizing
Yep.
agents.
What?
You know, I don't, I don't talk to them like they're
What was that big
humans.
word?
Anthropomorphizing, is that right? Did I say it wrong? I don't talk to them like they're humans anymore.
Yep.
I have a task, I need to get it done. I'll um and
Yeah, very good.
but because the other thing is like Mark's agent will be different from my agent, or and I guess unless multiple people are talking to the same thing, I think if you have multiple people talking to the same thing, then I can maybe think you can start to think of them as junior team members with like controlled responsibilities and stuff like that. But out in the Wild West, I tend not to, think of them as humans or team members. I think
I
it
don't
become
think they are team
problematic.
members. I don't think they are team members. Like, would you think of your laptop as a team member? Your laptop is something that you use. I mean, maybe you go downstairs to buy a coffee off the barista. The barista's not a team member. It's a person you talk to.
Yeah,
But, so I think the AI is not a team member. I do think you need to talk to the model. You need to treat the model as a junior engineer or a junior designer or whatever. But I actually think the team is the team. If the three of us are in a team, the LM's helping us, the AI is helping us. It's doing a really important job and it's doing a lot of work. But I think it's not part of the team. You know what I mean? Which I
yeah.
think
But
it's.
but
I
then
don't know. I'll
it
probably change
could
my mind tomorrow.
it could be a characteristic of evolution as well. Like again, in terms of like AI, I thought in orgs are maybe into that dark factory, where they're not looking at code and agents are kind of taking things from concept through to you can maybe see it in that scenario where you maybe want
Yeah.
to humanize the agent for traceability or for control. But I know this is probably one mad deep, but I guess where most organizations are at the minute, like most companies will probably take things to the point to where you get to a PR and then the human comes into the loop. And
Yeah.
again, then you take it on from there. So I agree. I think it is hard. You shouldn't, and I think we should probably advise people against. Like I would probably advise against it. Um,
Yeah. I know some people talk about pairing with the agent. Um, I know there's a chat on LinkedIn the week. I think Matt Wynn was weighing in. A few people were chatting about it. I don't think you can pair with an agent. I think two people pair using an agent as a third thing, or one person uses an agent. I think that the richness of pairing is the conversation and the shared experiences and the observations. That's the richness of pairing.
yeah.
So let's go through the team types and team topologies for the crack and see how they align in this crazy AI world. So what's first? Let's go for stream-aligned teams first. So stream-aligned kind of own the sort of value stream.
What in terms of, you know,
Well, like in a magic agentic world where there's agents doing this, that, and the other, and there's things bombing on full tilt. Like, do you still need, does the concept of a stream-aligned team still make sense?
yeah, I still feel like these are probably your most numerous. You
Yeah.
know,
Mm. I
again,
think
I
that's
think
the safest one.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
this could be your typical pick up the story from the backlog, you know, work it through until it's of high quality, and then create the PR. It's very focused. It's very much top of the stack, and it's very focused on delivering business outcomes, right? Like our streamlined
Customer
teams
value.
of people,
Yeah.
customer value, right? So I think that one's probably okay. I think yeah, because you can probably
Mm.
put guardrails, you can put agent skills, you can give them sort of personas or whatever to help them actually fulfill these
Mm.
streamlined activities.
I do think a stream-aligned team might end up doing a lot more with higher expectations of throughput.
Yep.
So as we'll get to, they do need help from other teams. You know what I
Yep.
mean? A
And I do think,
streamlined team on their own with nobody else would have a huge amount of work to do.
yeah, I think the streamline teams are going to use a lot of AI agents to help them do their work as well, right? The code
Yeah,
review bot, the security review bot, the PR bot, all those sort of things help the streamline teams get through work more quickly and also deliver value more quickly. So I definitely think, a streamlined team empowered and enabled with a lot of these agentic capabilities will be a big thing. I think a lot of our teams
yeah,
will be streamlined teams, right?
Well,
yeah.
it's probably a topic for a different podcast, like, but the whole Jevons Paradox stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think where most kind of progressive organizations may end up is, I think the bottleneck here is going to be the time it takes to learn and get the feedback from the end user, and apply.
Oh yeah.
And in the meantime, it's like, what's your top of funnel stuff? Like, how quickly can the org come up with new ideas, but how do you do that in such a way that you're not confusing users and, throwing too much out? So again, I feel like this will force, teams to maybe open up different business areas or opportunities, or, I kind of see this as being, almost like, how would you assess the health of
Yeah.
a sort of
Well,
technology organization?
yeah, that's a
And
good point.
I
Go
do
ahead,
think
Mark. Sorry.
these ones definitely, if you have good codified architectural principles and practices and standards in place for your entire ecosystem, your entire system, then the streamlined teams empowered with AI agents can be much more effective. If you have a streamlined team who doesn't have good standards, good guardrails, good sort of capabilities that are underpinning them from the platform and the enabling teams, then that's a recipe for disaster because they'll all be baking, 50 different solutions, 50 different ways, and it'll be an unsustainable mess. So I think, you got to make sure that all the other team types are in there doing their roles to allow the streamline teams empowered with agents to actually do sustainably succeed.
Hmm, interesting stuff. So what about platform teams? Dun, dun, dun. I have to do my mini rant here about system ins becoming DevOps teams, becoming platform teams. Is that team that plugs in the computer for you? They keep changing, you know what I mean? But let's talk about the true platform teams that actually build a platform. They don't just, you
Yeah,
know, do the cloud stuff for you. Um, I
Mhm.
yeah,
actually think it's going to get very complicated. I still think they're important, but I think the landscape, well, first of all, the tools are shifting so quickly.
yeah,
One important responsibility of platform teams is to create the right environment
yeah,
for those agentic runtimes, be it the tooling or even the actual production runtimes.
yeah.
Aye.
Well, I do think we need those platform teams to be embracing all the new capabilities, but also, like you say, create the ecosystem that, like, there's a shared responsibility model here where they need to make sure that the guardrails are in place, the observability is in place, the cost optimization and FinOps type practices are in place, the security practices are in place, so that the streamline teams have a bit more autonomy, but they know that there's, freedom within the fences a little bit, right?
Mm,
They can't go too far off the rails. They can't do things that are totally insecure. So I think there's a lot of things for platform teams to understand and embrace, and they can use AI agents as well to help them do their work. But you still need people in those
yeah.
teams to do the work.
Yeah, it's facilitation. In my experience, like, if your streamline teams are now innovating at a more exponential level than they've maybe been in the past because they're way more enabled, then that's going to generate more things for consideration at the platform level. But then how do you keep those teams at an organizational level, on the same platform?
Yeah,
Like, so you got to facilitate, you've got to be on the front line with those guys. You got to find out what works for those pioneering teams, or just teams who've maybe tried something out, and then you want to get that across an organization. So you've got to be good at, amplification and, what's that other term? We kind of evangelism,
yeah,
like,
Mm.
so again, so I feel like it's different, but it's still absolutely
yeah.
a
Yeah.
necessity.
It's even all
Security is a massive part of it. Security is a huge part of
Security's
it. The
massive.
the, 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 the
even
threat
like,
landscape is moving so fast.
yeah, like establishing the whole AI DLC is a big endeavor in itself, right? Putting all those
Um,
tools in place, meeting with all the vendors and doing all the agreements and making sure that they're all secure and approved and they're not shadow ITing agentic capabilities and that the platform team knew nothing about.
Well,
There's a full-time job just keeping an eye on all that stuff.
yeah, and most organizations are at their point now where they're just trying to get teams into this way of working and embracing it, and they're
Yep.
starting to see all these things emerge. But at a certain point in time,
Mm.
then you've got to decide, okay, how do we curate this?
Now
Um,
there's also the you need to be very careful about your golden path being too opinionated and not giving the streamline teams the autonomy and the freedom to actually explore solutions and stuff. But
Mm.
that's probably a talk for another day.
That's a whole different one. Plus, I always think platform teams need to be like a page ahead of the streamline teams,
hmm,
and that's always really hard. And
Yep.
I think, but if it's stuff like we'll say cloud native, that at least your platform team are all experts in cloud native. The new agentic stuff, it's moving so fast, they've got to ramp up and be ahead. So I think it's a huge challenge
Yep.
for platform teams. Next one is enabling teams. Um, I think this one's massive.
Yep.
And I actually think this is a really difficult role if you're in an enablement team. It's because you're trying to enable something that everyone's still trying to work out.
Yep.
yeah, I mean, in this day and age, I've seen enablement teams where it's just that bass for action. And again, I was back to earlier. You're talking to when you first go in, you start watching, actual humans use say something like cursor and how they're behaving around the agent. You see it's really slow and they're inspecting everything, and then it's just a complete rewiring, and you need to have people who can kind of come in and support and set people up. And there's the human kind of side of this, but it's hard to you. It is very different, and they are different skill sets, and teams do need support, and you do need to kind of there will be a spectrum on your organization in any typical organization where teams are at. So I
Mm.
th I still feel like these sorts of things are 100% required.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Like you need capacity to actually explore and understand and try out all the emerging capabilities, and before you can then talk to the streamline teams about here's how you can embrace these things. Right.
Yeah.
So I think the enabling team's a critical accelerator, and you're seeing the forward deployed engineer and all these sort of things that are starting to
Mm.
emerge about going into companies and helping them adopt AI. It's the same within your work. You need these enabling teams who are able to actually show the way, or at least to point the direction that this might work, or this tool or this capability does work, and you should try it.
Mm. I
Yeah.
think I spend a huge amount of time when like to be a really smart engineer and they're going right, I'm trying this stuff, and you can see that they're approaching the agentic stuff like they would approach normal technology. They're trying to be deterministic.
Yep.
They're trying to overspecify. And then maybe because you can almost see, and you almost have to sort of say, that's really good, but here's a couple of tweaks in how you approach it.
Yep.
Like even like we go, oh, I got that wrong. You're like, well, just tell it I got it wrong. Just say you got that wrong. Try something else. And there's a way of interacting with these agents that's
Yeah.
not natural.
Yep.
So I think there's a massive human part about just coaching someone through that. You know what I mean? Because often people say, "Oh, the agent's stupid. Look, I got that wrong." I was like, "Well, tell it I got that wrong and ask it not to do that again."
I've
You
seen
know?
I've seen anti-patterns with this sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
Where we Jimmy comes in and we Jimmy can wreak havoc with like cursor and generate tons of code and be seen to be doing loads of tickets. But we Jimmy has just kind of shipped an absolute, metric ton of code that adheres to no standards, no,
Yeah.
no nothing. And it looks great, but then he delivered on time. And then wee Jimmy gets himself into a position where wee Jimmy's up talking, telling everybody about
Yep.
this, and this, and now he's in
This is how
helping.
you do it.
This is how you do it. And in my experience, it's got to be, proper experienced practitioners who understand like, you know, um, how to scale, how to go across, like safety, all the different, we talk about well architected, how to navigate that with this in a
Mm.
safe kind of fashion with long-term value in mind as well. Like this should be this should be an accelerator for building well architected software that you trust, not an excuse to kind of bypass that for time
And,
to
and,
Yeah.
value.
and in the past, those enablement engagements would have been maybe quarterly or every couple of months or whatever, right? Now, with the pace of change, you almost need those collaboration sessions, those knowledge transfer sessions every week, right?
Mm,
So,
Mm.
enablement teams need to be, evangelizing a lot more, creating the videos, creating the tutorials, producing the guides, walking the teams through this stuff because it is moving so incredibly quickly.
That's
Yeah.
going like lightning fast. And then the last one is the complicated subsystems, which we are kind of deep specialists.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
this is an interesting one. Um, so do you think a model negates the need for a complicated subsystem team?
Um, it's interesting. I think no. Um,
Just a trick
I
question.
no. I still feel like it's complicated for a reason,
Yeah.
right? And do I think like in Kinefin can leveraging this stuff go can you go from chaos to complicated and 100%? Yeah, like so again, chaos is different from complicated. But for the complicated subsystem, I feel like good complicated subsystems teams will be using the technology to kind of further their own agendas. Because again, these guys will want to go and do stuff, but sometimes just the density and the weight of the complexity they deal with on a day-to-day maybe holds them back. But what I've seen with complex subsystem teams here that use the stuff is they can try to your point, if they can get a page ahead,
Yeah.
like okay, and they can start proposing things, start kind of, making it less complicated. So
Hmm.
so it's interesting this one. I
Yeah.
think,
And often the reason why it's complicated isn't necessarily, in my opinion, it's not because it's a complicated problem. It's because you work with very complicated stakeholders. By
yes,
that I mean lawyers, underwriters, stock market people. It's no really complicated space. So
could be.
it's not, oh, this is really hard. Like all software is hard, but it's like you're dealing with people who maybe underwriters who
Yeah.
work in an incredibly complicated way, and you have to try and work out, and they don't have a lot of time to sit and explain an entire industry to you, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you can go across all these different team types more easily now with the you know upskilling and the knowledge of AI agents and sort of things like Notebook LM. You can learn about all these things. You can learn about these complicated subsystems. Doesn't mean you should be, replacing those teams with somebody who's just looking stuff up and using their agentic AI to help them do this stuff. I think you need established capabilities that do this if you want to have any sort of sustainability around this.
We
yeah.
still need to design a system for a complicated subsystem, it is complicated, So
Mm.
very good. So then
So
we think then the team topology is still important.
very much so.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, just because the code has been slightly optimized, I've been saying this, the things outside that, like the start and end of it, the specification, the discovery, and all the getting the production, like that's more important than ever.
Yeah.
So if code is generated and throughput's up, all the other stuff is even more important. And it's always the human element of software that makes it hard. Like, and I think that's exactly what Team Topologies hits the nail on the head, like, and nails. So
Yeah, you need again, and what we're talking about in a lot of these episodes is constraints. And I think this stuff is good organizational constraints, enabling constraints, as McCann you refer to them quite a bit.
Yep.
It's like what are they? And I think I still feel like the structure is very valid, 100%.
hmm,
Yep.
Yeah.
cool. Lots to crack then. Good stuff. That was an interesting one. Talk about that all day. I'll not even attempt to repeat your big word, Mike. Um, so,
Don't even ask
um,
me to attempt to repeat it.
so give us a click on LinkedIn at the Serverless Age or on YouTube at Serverless CrAIc and or at serverlessage.com. Thanks very much. See you next time. Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Bye.